Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. What on God's green earth is the perfect even split between being terrifying and awesome? The build-up to the release of a Star Wars game under the EA license. Other than that, the apex predators of the ocean. Prehistoric killing machines that surprisingly don't kill more people annually. Sharks are too cool. Hollywood knows this too. Thanks, Steven Spielberg. Jaws, Deep Blue Sea, The Shallows, Sharknado, Three-Headed Shark Attack. Yup, that's a thing. Shark movies really do seem to have a cultural relevance, don't they? But every so often, when a theatrical release of a shark movie comes out, we secretly hope it's awesome. So, how does 47 Meters Down stack up with the rest of them? Well, let's talk about it.
It's gonna be the best vacation ever.
Seriously, you have to try.
I don't even know how to dive.
It's totally safe.
Okay. Oh my god. Like the biggest shark. We would like to come back up now.
Stay in the cage.
I have no air. I have to go now.
47 meters down.
It is directed and co-written by Johannes Roberts, known for The Strangers Pray at Night, The Other Side of the Door, and will be helming the upcoming 47 Meters Down Uncaged. The film co-stars Mandy Moore from The Darkest Minds, Tangled, and will be in the upcoming Midway, and Claire Holt from H2O Just Add Water, The Vampire Diaries, and will be in the upcoming Painted Beauty. Originally, when I first saw this one, I thought that it was just okay, kind of leaning toward the bad side. But now that I've revisited it, some things hold up a little bit better. And I didn't give enough credit to some other aspects. So, let's talk about that. One of the things that this movie does really well is atmosphere. There is a constant sense of hopelessness and isolation. Especially with sharks constantly circling around, you can't see them, the water's too dark. You are just as terrified of leaving that cage as the main characters are. The reasons for these characters for doing things that could be conceived as stupid are actually played with a little bit better here. The rest of the movie does a fair, decent job of letting you know these characters do have to venture out of the cage at some point. If their oxygen gets too low, they need a spare oxygen tank. Their rescuers are taking a while to save them. There is a whole system in place, and it doesn't always work out 100%. There is a lot of tension in this movie, some decent scares, even some great visuals. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the positives end for me. Something that I'm not sure if I want to consider a positive or negative is the acting. Now, don't get me wrong. Mandy Moore and Claire Holt do a fair job. The problem is that their characters are sort of just stock. They're the classic nice girls, they get along, but that's kind of it. There's just really nothing to them. Here's a personal philosophy of mine when it comes to writing horror films. You can only go two directions. One, the B-movie kind of gore fest. You're not supposed to be invested in these characters. You want to see them die in creatively painful ways. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, you're not really supposed to care about what happens to these characters. The idea is to see creative deaths. The other side of the coin is to create characters that you do care about. So in place of characters constantly dying, you need to create a sense of danger. Atmosphere is everything. The Conjuring films do this very well. They're not exactly gore fests, but they are very scary, and you do absolutely care about these characters. You don't want to see them die. This movie does try to make you care about these characters, but honestly, they can get a little annoying. At the very least, you don't really care if anything happens to them. This especially goes for Lisa, played by Mandy Moore, who is pretty much the nervous Nelly of the entire movie. I dare you, play a drinking game. Take a shot for every time this girl says, "Oh, I don't know about this. I'm so scared." I swear to you, you will get drunk off your ass. I'm not trying because I'm afraid of the hangover. And that's really what cripples the film, is that because you don't really care about these characters, there's nothing that can happen to them that'll make you go, "Oh no." It just won't happen. So if you haven't seen this, the atmosphere is what's going to hold it together for you, not necessarily the characters. Which is a shame because these actresses are giving it their all. Another thing that I didn't agree with was how they told the story. And I think I'm going to get into spoilers on this one. One of the biggest issues that I had with the movie is that it actually had all the pieces to making a stronger film, but they're rearranged in a way that made it weaker. So here's how the events play out. The cage breaks, they fall to the ocean bottom. The crane falls on top of their cage. Kate swims out to push it off. Later on, they see a flashlight. They think it's help. Lisa's the one that goes out and investigates. They now have the means to get rescued and pulled up to the surface. Things go sideways. Cage falls again. Lisa's leg is pinned. The rescuers send tanks down, but it's warned that if they use them, they could possibly hallucinate, so they need to watch each other. Kate swims out to go get the tanks. She gets eaten. Lisa decides she's not going to die in this cage. She frees herself. Here's Kate, goes to rescue her. They swim up to the surface, and then all seems well. However, it's revealed that Lisa never left the cage. She's been hallucinating this entire time. She never heard her sister, she never rescued her sister, she never got to the surface. Now we get into the problems. As presented, I don't like this ending. It's a little too bleak and does a disservice to Lisa's development as a character. So here's what I would have done differently. Follow along with me here. Let's take that very first time that the cage falls. I would have it so that someone got injured right then and there as opposed to later on. That someone would be Kate, not Lisa. So now it's Lisa that has to venture out and push the crane off of it. This would not deviate too much from her character. Kate's out of commission, so Lisa's the only one that has to move it. She's the only one that can swim. She's also not venturing too far away from the cage. She has her safety net right there. At the very least, it's a far cry safer than if she were to say, like she actually does, swim across the ocean bed to investigate a flashlight. And there is a system in place. Take off the tank, take off the mask. I'm sure there's about 100 reasons why you shouldn't do that, but in a survival case, I'm sure it's still a viable option. Lisa pushes the crane off the cage. All right, cool. Except here, I would have it that she gets attacked by a shark. She does exactly what she does at the end of the film, clawing at the eye, gets free. Her wounds are more or less superficial, not too bad, but she needs to get out of here. So she swims back to the cage, she's safe, maybe they have enough supplies to dress the wound a bit, but now Kate needs to be free. Her leg is free from the cage. Now we get to the part where they see a flashlight in the distance. In the movie, it's Lisa that goes to get it, but I think that's against her character because she's a lot more timid and a lot more afraid than Kate is. So, in my scenario, it's Kate that goes to get the flashlight. Situation plays out exactly like it does in the movie despite her busted leg. It's far safer that it's Kate that does this as opposed to Lisa in my scenario because a bleeding leg is basically a dinner bell. With Kate, she's a lot safer. So in my scenario, here's Kate demonstrating her bravery. Lisa's picking up on that, and it will play out later on. And just like in the movie, they get the winch, they go back to the surface, cage falls again, except this time nobody gets injured. Again, very similar to the movie, they throw down the gas tanks, they say, hey, be careful, you might hallucinate. Except here's where I would change things. I would actually just get rid of that hallucination line entirely. Sure, in real life, this is probably useful information, but for the sake of the narrative, I would leave this line out. Because what happens when you introduce that line? You're expecting something to not be real. The audience is now going to be pinpointing, trying to figure out when the hallucinations start, because they know at some point it's going to. Otherwise, you have a useless line that goes nowhere, and that's no fun for anybody. In the movie, when Kate gets eaten by the shark, Lisa has that look of determination and says, I am not dying in this cage. So she frees her leg and then swims up to the surface, saves Kate, who she thinks is still alive, all that good stuff. But I wouldn't have that. I would just have it that Lisa frees herself and just swims to the surface, flares and all. She's solo. She's demonstrating her courage, all that shit that she learned from Kate. She gets to the surface, pulled into the boat, happy ending. This way, it demonstrates what she learned from Lisa. Therefore, I think serves her character arc a little bit better. But let's say we want to go for the more bleak ending. There's a way to do that too. Take my scenario, it would play out more or less exactly the same, except this time I would leave in the hallucination line. See, in the movie, she has a look of determination. She's summoning courage to leave the cage. In my scenario, however, in this new one, if you wanted to do the bleak ending, I would say she's not leaving out of courage, she's leaving out of fear. She just saw her sister die. She has lost the one person who has protected her this entire time. So now she just wants out. She doesn't care if she lives or dies. She just doesn't want to die in this cage. She wants to try and make it to the surface. Again, out of fear, not courage. See what I'm doing? But the hallucination stuff would play out exactly how it does in the actual movie. She hears Kate's voice, she goes to save her, swims up to the surface. Turns out it's all a hallucination, and she's back in the cage. Exactly like it plays out in the movie. With this ending, it wouldn't be a disservice to her character. That seemed like in the movie was supposed to be learning courage. This way, it's just about hopelessness. She still lives, and she's still gonna live knowing that her sister is dead, but we're not doing a half-assed she learned courage and then just take it all away from her at the end. At least this way, it's committed more to her character as presented in the actual movie. But honestly, that's just me. I'm sure some of it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but for those of you that did manage to follow along and see what I was going for, thanks for sticking through it. Overall, it may hold up better than when I first saw it in theaters, but that doesn't make it good. It's still just an average shark film. It could have been a whole lot better. But then again, it could have been a whole lot worse. It's no Jaws, it's no Deep Blue Sea, it's no The Shallows, but it's serviceable enough. Provided you get into the atmosphere, you'll be fine. So my honest rating for 47 Meters Down is a 3 out of 5. Alright guys, that's it. Keep an eye out for my review for the next installment, Uncaged. Won't be for a little while, of course, but keep an eye out for it nonetheless. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great one. Hope to see you soon.